If you're somebody who's had some big goals, but they've struggled to achieve them, I'm right there with you. But this is going to be a video that might be really helpful for you to make that shift and finally achieve the things that you say are important to you. I know for me in 2025, there's a couple of big things that I wanted to make happen, but for various reasons, I felt I didn't achieve them. I didn't get the ball rolling. I didn't do enough of the actions that come from preparation that would have got that thing done. And where this idea came to me was in church on Sunday. And before I dig into that, I don't want to scare people off who aren't part of going to church, who aren't believers in that whole system. This is not going to be a sales pitch for getting into the church. But I do want to clarify that the church that I've started going to recently, which has only been back in my life a month, I'm 33, I'm Irish, I grew up Catholic, so I was in and out of church, but never really paid it much attention. And at this point in my life, and the point of which the world is at, I've been drawn back into that, back into getting involved in reading the Bible, because I think there's a lot of use from the moral standpoint to be able to set your life up in a way that you can be happy about. But the church that I attend, it's not in a physical church. It actually takes place in a cinema where the preachers give sermons as you would in a normal church, but most times a lot of what they talk about applies way more to life than the traditional Sunday church model. And one thing that came up this past Sunday, because the sermon was all about getting ready for Advent, which a lot of us just think about the little chocolates that we used to wish we could eat all at once as a kid. It was talking about what it really means and what way you should be preparing to get yourself ready for Christmas, because that's what Advent is. It's the 25-day run up to Christmas. And one of the things that jumped out at me from a non religious perspective was the statement preparation is what happens when belief turns into action. And I'm side eyeing because I've got a screenshot of when I was there. I took a picture of what was on the board because I didn't want to forget it. To me, personally, that has nothing to do with faith and everything to do with achieving outcomes that you're struggling to achieve. Because the statement to me screamed the fact that if there's an outcome that you're trying to achieve and you're not getting there, it's simply because you didn't put in the preparation, because you didn't have the belief in the goal. So the actions you needed to take didn't happen because you didn't have the belief system that you deserved it. You didn't have the belief system that you were capable of achieving whatever it is that you're trying to get after. If that's a physical change in your body, maybe you're carrying too much body fat, maybe you're too skinny and you want more muscle, you need to accept that you deserve the change, but you also need to accept that you have the capacity for that change. Now, this might be something much bigger in your life. It might be a sobriety journey. It might be connecting deeper with your partner and your family. And as we like to say around here, becoming a better man. In order for you to be able to do those things, you need to believe that you can. Once you believe you can focus far more on the preparation that leads you to make it so difficult not to take the actions that you just have to do them. And to give you a practical application instead of just some vague words from somebody that shows up to a church on a Sunday, let's say it is your body fat loss journey where you want to get leaner, you want to start feeling more confident when you take the t shirt off. That needs to be a very important first week when you get into that journey. You need to understand what it's going to look like. You need to understand what's going to be expected from you and why it's important to you. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I wish I could lose a few pounds, but they don't. The people who say, I need to do this, or else my life is going to, or if I don't do this, this horrible thing is going to happen. You need to start to understand the cost of not taking action in order to be able to believe that it's important enough to prepare and take action. A lot of vague pieces in this statement today. But with fat loss, let's get a little bit morbid. And I'm going to steal a line or a story from Mr. Ed Milet. If you don't know who he is, go and look him up. I'm not going to waste time in the video running into who he is. He tells a really like skin crawling, goosebump type of story about his uncle passing away from a heart attack years ago. And this was at a time when some new scans and new medical jumps that happened where you're able to go and get a really detailed scan on how your heart health is and predict morbidly when you're going to die. He went to like the best specialist he could find because he's like, I'm not going to spare any expense in trying to figure out where my health is at because it scared the shit out of him. And when he went to this doctor, he was so lucky that he had such a dutiful and careful doctor. And when he sat him down for his results, and he's like, "Tell me what's up, doctor." He's like, "I need to ask you a question." And he's like, "What is it?" Like, "You're a father, right?" And he says, "Yeah." "Do you want to see your daughter get married?" And he's like, "Of course. Why are you asking me that?" And he's like, "Okay. Are you okay with somebody else walking her down the aisle?" And he's like, "Absolutely not. It's my daughter. I'm walking her down the aisle when she's old enough. She's only a little kid at this point." Says, "Okay, you're going to have to change some parts of your lifestyle or you're not going to be here when she gets married. You're going to die early because if you don't change X, Y, Z based off this result, you are going to die. You're going to get into an early grave. And that's all there is to it." And from that moment, he completely shifted what he did. He was always a jacked dude, but health is different. He started focusing on cardio, changing his food, changing every habit around his life because he understood the gravity of the situation. That if did not achieve the outcome he was reaching for, somebody else is going to walk his daughter down the aisle. You may not be at a place where your goal is that important yet, and you may not need it to be that important. It could simply be that if you don't change your physical appearance, you're not going to get the confidence required to get yourself a partner. You're not going to get the confidence required to crawl up that career ladder. Whatever it might be, you need to find what version of unacceptable will occur if you don't take action. And when you sit with that and find what it is, I guarantee it doesn't matter what the steps are, you're going to take them. If it's 5 days a week of cardio and not eating any pizza anymore, you're going to do that for as long as it takes to get you healthy. And that's all there is to it. When it comes to achieving a goal, this is something that I'm trying to do myself in my business and with the development of the relationship with my partner. Those two things are incredibly important because to me and her, the most important thing over the next year and a half to 2 years is getting in the position where we can start our family and have our children. At the minute, it's a plan to have two, boy and a girl, if we get given that. But healthy kids is all we want. So right now, my every focus, my why, my drive, the things that'll make me take the actions are needing enough financial resources. So I'm growing the business, but also internally doing enough growth and development work where I know that I'm going to be the best father that I can be so that I can show up for them. But attached to that, I also want to be an incredible husband. I need to ask her that important question first, of course. But that's what I'm working on, and all of those steps and everything you see out of me over the next year and a half and hopefully rest of my long, long life, if things work the right way, are me being driven by trying to provide the best life possible for the family that I'm building. If you pull your goal down to something as big as that and make it into something small, you will be able to achieve whatever the goal is. If you need a little bit of help with figuring out that why, if you need a little bit of help with figuring out the steps, we've got the Betterman program. You've got a link in the description of the YouTube. If you subscribe to this channel, and if this is the first time you're seeing me, by the way, my name is Matt, the Betterman Coach. Thank you for watching. We help people do that. We help men in order to figure out exactly where they need to go and show them the steps to get there. Sometimes that takes 12 weeks. Sometimes that might take 12 months. Sometimes it may take longer. But if you enjoyed what I talked about, if any of this resonated with you, I would be really grateful if you subscribed. If some of this jumped out at you in a big way, I'd love if you commented and told me how it's impacting you and what you're going to do. But at the very least, if you enjoyed watching me ramble on about a load of shite, give us a like because it helps me grow the channel and will ultimately help me provide for the family that me and my partner are aiming to build. And it will help me on a much bigger level reach my mission of helping 1 million men become the best version of themselves over the next decade. And I can't do that if the men don't see these videos. You'll see me on the next video. I'll hopefully talk to you in the comments and maybe one day talk to you inside the program. Thanks for watching.